Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott, and welcome to Barbecue Elevated. Today, we're going to be making some spare ribs today. It's extra cold outside today, so I'll be actually starting out inside. It's very cold. There's snow on the ground, ice on the ground. Really didn't want to be outside. I'm going to be prepping my meat and my ribs on my table outside, but today, with there being so much snow and it being cold, we're going to go ahead and prep them inside. But that's not going to stop us from making some awesome ribs today. Still going to do what I can to make as much barbecue as I can, as often as I can, regardless of the weather outside. It's important to learn how to be able to do these things in any condition. Anyways, I'll get these opened up and then I'll show you how I kind of prep them and get them going. Okay, so here we have it. This is the first rack of ribs that I'll be doing today. I actually got 2 racks of ribs. Here's the second rack of ribs. So pretty much I prep them both the exact same way. One of these I'm just going to do with just a salt pepper mix on top and then putting just salt along the bottom. The other one I'm going to use some seasoning that I mixed together for the turkeys that I did have some left over. Going to try it on the ribs and see how they go. Never done it before, so going to see how that works out and see how it tastes. But anyways, I'll start off by just kind of showing you kind of what I do to get things prepped with spare ribs. So the first thing I like to do is just kind of go through, find any loose ends that are just kind of hanging out. Try to make them so they're just nice and uniform. Make it so everything is square. So typically on spare ribs, right here, on this one it would be right here. There's a breastbone that you'll typically want to get a larger knife and cut it out. The place that I buy my ribs from, they cut it out for me, so I don't have to worry about doing that. It makes it extra nice, extra simple for me. I'm not having to worry about that. But if you ever do get ribs that have that, cut that out. It makes it a lot easier to cook, and there's no point in having it there. So really, I'm just kind of cutting off the scraps, making it so that they're square, making it so that any portions of these ribs that could dry out, that they're not going to. Just try to make it nice and square, nice and even. Don't really want to have, because a lot of ribs and a lot of this stuff, if you have pieces that are hanging off that aren't square, or just like little chunks or whatever, they're just going to dry out. They're not going to taste very good. So just get them off the meat now, get them out of the way, and just improve your overall cook experience. Try to make it so they're nice and uniform, flowing very well. One of the things that I really like about spare ribs is the amount of fat that they have in them. Fat content that's mixed in with the actual meat itself. That's what I look for when I'm buying ribs. I look just for nice amount of fat in them. Back ribs you can get too, and I like back ribs, but those typically have less fat. They're a lot more lean, a little bit more meat on those than what spare ribs are. But spare ribs can be really good, really juicy, just because of their fat content that they have. Something else to look for on spare ribs when you're picking them out and buying them. Don't want to have what's called shiners, which is where you can see the actual bone sticking through. Sometimes that'll happen on spare ribs, so you don't want to see any bone sticking through on top. Just fat and meat across the top. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this over and work on the back side. So there's always this little skirt here of meat that just kind of hangs out, and it really just dries out when you're cooking, and it just doesn't really do much to help the cook or help the flavor or with the overall quality. So I always cut that out as well. Get that out of the way. Get out some of these, just the loose pieces of meat, get them out of the way. So not a whole lot of trimming. Normally doesn't take too long to do this, but definitely makes a difference when you just kind of get the things out of the way that you don't need, or the things that aren't really going to produce any kind of quality, that are just going to dry out. Just cut them out of the way, get them out of the way. And I know a lot of people won't do all of this, and that's totally fine. If you like having it that way and keeping them that way, keep it that way. I typically cut more than I probably need to, but I do it because it's just the way I like them to be. Next, I'm going to see if we can get this the membrane off, which is, you can't really see it, but right along here where the meat is covered with, there's a membrane, the meat that kind of blocks the meat. You know, you can kind of go either way. Most restaurants that you go to, you have ribs at, aren't going to take the membrane out because they don't have time to do that. In my experience, taking it out, leaving it on doesn't really make a huge difference from flavor, but it does. But I do think it does make enough of a difference that it's worth taking them off when you're just doing a few ribs. And so that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to do it just so I can kind of show you. If you noticed, I just kind of started with the knife underneath and just kind of broke it free with the knife. And then, well, this one's going to be a little bit stubborn, but we'll get it. Just kind of get your fingers underneath, and hopefully you can see when I'm pulling. Just pull it all the way across. Pull it off. Not super complicated, not super difficult, but definitely something you've got to just be aware of, and just something I guess can be helpful to see being done. So now we've got it off, and now you can kind of see here the difference, where you can see the meat that's exposed as opposed to like these ones right here, where you can still see that the membrane is still on it. Gonna go ahead and just kind of finish up getting the rest of this off, and then once I get that off, I can move on to the next ones. But anyways, this one's actually good enough for what I'm trying to do. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do this next one just so that I can take my glove off afterwards, and so that I can season these ribs next with a clean hand. Again, just kind of cutting off that little, I call it a skirt, that just cutting off anything that's just kind of hanging around, making them nice and even and smooth. And then we'll work on getting the membrane off on this one. This one started to come off easier, but then it stopped. So I'm going to actually take this glove off. I'll just have to wash my hand real quick. Okay, so yeah, I'll go ahead and finish getting this membrane off, and then we can keep going. There it comes. All right. Membrane is off on this one as well. So let me go into my hand real quick, and then I'll show you how to season. Now, this was an idea that I got from, initially I heard it from Aaron Franklin, where he mentioned that a lot of times he'll put salt on the bottom of the ribs, and then on top he'll use a mixture of salt and pepper, where it's more heavy on the pepper. It's 2/3 part pepper, 1/3 part kosher salt. Again, I use a restaurant grind or coarse ground pepper for all of my smoking, and then kosher salt as well. Get those bigger granulars, get those bigger grains, so that you can really have texture on your meat and attract that smoke that we want, that good smoky flavor. So, but anyways, I heard Aaron Franklin talk about making his ribs this way, where you make it so that you get that savory flavor on your tongue when you bite into the bottom of the rib with the salt, and then the top you get that peppery, textury flavor. Never really tried it until I went to a place where actually I tried some ribs, and they did them they actually made them this way with putting salt on the bottom, and ever since I've just kind of been a big fan of it. So now that's how I do, typically I do my ribs, with salt on the bottom and pepper on the top. So there's the salt. I don't usually mustard this side. I kind of found doing mustard on the salt side doesn't really work too great. But now on the top side, I'll go ahead and throw just a very, very light amount of mustard on top. Spread it around. Again, we're just trying to make the surface so that it's sticky, so that it's tacky. You're never going to actually taste the mustard. Purpose of this is just to make it so that the seasoning sticks, the rub sticks. So salt and pepper mix. And don't go too heavy on this on ribs, just kind of make it nice and even. Get it all the way across. And that's it. So those are seasoned. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do the other rib with this other seasoning real quick. Again, just doing this purely because I just really want to test, see how it works, see what it tastes like, because you never know until you try it. So just going to kind of do the same amount of seasoning that I would normally do with salt and pepper. Don't want to over season it, still want the flavor of the meat and the smoke to stand out, but still want some seasoning on there. Want to be able to taste it, see what value it adds. So, and then after this, I'll just go ahead and put them right on the smoker. It's been warming up all morning and still going while I've been showing you how to do this, so that way I can just throw them straight on right away. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out. These granulars are not very big on this seasoning, so may not be great, but we're going to just try it anyways. But because they're not super big, I also made it a little bit heavier, just because trying to make sure that I really get enough. So anyways, there we have it. We'll go ahead and put these on the smoker, and then I'll kind of show you what I do to check them and how we kind of progress from here. Typically, I'll put them on the smoker, let them sit on there for at least a good hour, sometimes a little bit longer, and then I'll just start spritzing them with cider vinegar just to keep them from drying out, keep them moist. Better than that, you know, just kind of get to the point where you're ready to wrap them. But so we'll go and put these on the smoker now, and then we'll chicken on them in a little bit. All right, so it's been about an hour now since I put these on. A little bit over an hour since I last put these on the cooker this morning on the smoker. Gonna come out here and just check them real quick, spritz them. Been holding a temp at about 275. You know, in my offset, I typically cook them about 275, and with all the air that's flowing through, a little bit hotter temp on an offset like mine really helps to keep the cook going and to keep the ribs cooking. You know, if you're using a pellet grill or whatever, feel free to set them at 225 or, you know, 230, 240, whatever you want. 225, 235, whatever. But typically on a pellet grill, you go a little bit cooler. But anyways, let's open this up and check them out. So here we can kind of see the ribs. We can see these ones back here, the ones with the pepper. This is the one where I put the turkey seasoning on, or the turkey rub on, the rub we use for the turkey breast. So one thing I wanted to point out too, you know, I always put the fatter end towards the heat source. So typically you just kind of look where the chest bone was, which is right here on this one. Up there, it's on this one. So that chest bone side is going to face the fire side. If you have a pellet and it's, you know, your pellet little fire circle is in the middle, just kind of try to put the rib so that this end is facing towards it, and try to keep them away from the center of the pellet smoker. If your pellet smoker is on the side, of course, then just flip them the other way. Keep them there. But we're just going to spritz this real quick, just to make sure that they stay good and moist. I'm just using apple cider vinegar to spritz them, and really the whole purpose Purpose of doing that is just to make sure that they don't dry out. Again, with the air flowing across all the time, they can dry out pretty quickly in mine. So in ribs, I typically check them about every hour. On a pellet one, it's good to check them too, just to make sure that they're staying moist. Don't let them get dried out. Don't let them, especially because they're not going to be sitting in the smoke for too long. You know, typically about 3 hours max. It's how long they'll be in the smoke before you'll wrap them. So try to keep them as dry as you can. Normally I wouldn't even have the lid open that long. I literally just come out, spritz them, close it right away. It takes about 30 seconds. Don't want to have the lid open any longer than it needs to be. Don't want to lose your temps. Don't want to let all that smoke flavor go out. So anyways, I'll be back to show you guys what I do to wrap them and to show when it's time to get them ready for that. Alright, so it's been about 2.5 hours now since they got put on the smoker. Just coming out here to check the ribs, check them basically to see if it's time to sauce them. So we're going to open this up, and so these ribs are looking really, really good. And there's definitely some good coloring to them. They're definitely getting some redness to them, which is what we want to see. These are ready for sauce. For any pork ribs that I do, I always sauce them. Whether it be spare ribs or back ribs, I just sauce them. Is what I like to do. So really what I do is just hit the rib with some cider vinegar, get my sauce, just kind of put it on, and I'll talk a little bit more. I'll talk more when I go to wrap these about the sauce and about what I use with the sauce to help you guys, you know, kind of understand what to look for and what to do with that. But just kind of spread it around, and then I'll hit it again with cider vinegar, and then we'll do the next rib. Same thing. I just really want to get these sauced and covered and get the lid closed as quickly as I can. So, like I said, we'll talk more about sauce once I've got them out to wrap. Just kind of brush it around. Just make sure you get them all over. And hit this again. Okay, and now what I'll do is I'll just let them sit in there for about 15 minutes. Let that sauce set, and then after 15 minutes I'll come out using gloves, my barbecue gloves. I will reach in with my hands and flip them over, and then sauce the other side, let them sit for 15 minutes, and then after that I'll pull them out for wrapping. It's really important when you any type of meat like this, especially with ribs or brisket or anything that you're cooking, you don't want to use tongs to manipulate the meat or pull it out. You always want to try to use your hands, because the meat's, of course, going to be hot. That's why I always use the gloves to be able to pull them out and not burn myself. But anyways, be back soon to show you the wrap. Okay, so I've got my foil out all ready to get prepping for the ribs to get pulled and to get them wrapped. I flipped them over. They're now just letting that sauce set on the back side of the ribs, and so I'm just going to go ahead and start getting the foil ready for that now. One thing I did want to point out with foil, there is a dull side and there is also a shiny side to foil. Be sure whenever you're wrapping that you have the dull side on the outside, whenever you're wrapping, the shiny side on the inside. The shiny side being on the outside will actually reflect heat and slow your cook down significantly. So wrapping shiny side up, we're going to put our ribs on the shiny side and then wrap it so the dull side of the foil is facing out. I did want to mention too about sauce. So this is the barbecue sauce that I make. It's just one that I made myself. Got the recipe from Aaron Franklin. It's one of his sauces, but really you can use any sauce that you want to use. There's no right or wrong. Whatever flavors you like, make it and use it. I have a few different sauces that I make. This is one of them that I make. This is my first time using this sauce on ribs. It's a little bit more runny than what I normally use, but you know what I typically will do is I'll fill this bottle halfway up with sauce and then fill the rest of the way up with cider vinegar. So half cider vinegar, half sauce, just to dilute it, make it so it's runny, make it so it's not too thick. The reason why I like this sauce than some of the other sauces that I make is because they have a low sugar content level to them. You know, that's really important when we're talking barbecue, is to use sauces that don't have a lot of sugar in them. Reason being, sugar will burn in your smoker, to burn on your grill. If you get sauces that don't have sugar, you reduce that burning that happens from them. But anyways, this is the sauce that I use. Whatever sauce you like, go ahead and use it. Again, no real right or wrong. It's a preference thing, right? So the first thing that I do is I just adjust my spray bottle so it can be more of a spray. Then I go ahead and I spray the entire surface of the foil with cider vinegar, because we're going to be wrapping this into it. So we want to make sure that this is the last time we get to see the ribs. We want to make sure we get them as tender and as juicy as we possibly can, and not dry them out. And then where I'm going to put the ribs, I'll just take and just squirt a little bit of sauce on, and then just set it like this. Then I'll just go and grab a rib and put it on top side down. Alright, so here it is. Rib 1 is out, ready to go. What I'm going to do real quick is just really quickly spritz the top side. And you can see just has a really good color to it now, especially after we've added a little bit of sauce to it. So just spritz that side real quick. Then we'll take the rib, flip it over upside down, and then what I like to do is just spritz this again, get the sauce, put just a little bit more sauce on the back side, spritz it again, and then real quick just kind of check for any rough edges on this. Make sure that there's nothing that's going to puncture the foil. We don't want to have any holes in the foil at all when we're wrapping. We do want to make it kind of tight still. Just kind of tuck it around. Get it in there really well, really good. Don't want a lot of air pockets, but again, we don't want any leaking matter from holes. Get it all in there. And this one is wrapped, and so now what I'll do is I'll put it back on the cooker just like this, with the side that we initially started up is now going to be down, and then we'll cook them the rest of the way. They'll be in there for about hour and a half, 2 hours ish at the most. Really, we're not really going to go off of time. I'm actually going to go off of feel. How these feel is going to tell me when they're done, but I'll show that when we get to that point. But then go get the other one, get it wrapped, and then get the tips back up in the cooker and get it cooking and going, and be back to show you how to check them for done. Alright, so it's been about an hour since I last had these in, since I wrapped them and put them in a foil. So now I'm just out here really just going to do a quick check on them. I like to check them about an hour just to feel them, to get a feel for how they are and how they feel, so that as they get closer to done, I can really recognize how they're coming along as they're getting done, because really we're going off of feel to know if these are done or not. So really just pick them up. Still feels really stiff, not a lot of flex in it. I like to kind of just push here in the middle and just see if there's any softness at all. And then do the same thing with these back ones. Again, stiff, a little bit more pliable, a little more pliable than the other ones, but still pretty stiff. So put them back in the cooker, and then what I'll do is I'll come back in a half hour, and at that point we'll be and it's actually been about an hour and a half since I wrapped them. So what I'll do is I'll come back in about 30 minutes, check them again, see how they feel, and then at that point I check them every 15 minutes. So after an hour and a half of wrapping, come out, check them, just get a feel for how they are. Sometimes they'll even be done, they'll feel done, but usually they're not. But just get a feel to gauge how they're feeling, how they're coming along. Then come back out, half an hour later, so 2 hours after wrap, start feeling them again. And at that point, every 15 minutes, you feel them, check them, pick them up, see how they're bending, and then just feel that center, in between that center, the two center bones. Just try to squish that meat a little bit, see how it feels, see how tender it is. And we're just kind of gauging and feeling for the right firmness, right tenderness. there's just such a small window with ribs where you've only got, where you've just got this 15-minute window that they're actually done. Beyond that, you're either going to be undercooked or you're going to overcook them. Either way, we don't want either of those. We want to make sure that they're just done. So you just have to come out here and just keep feeling them and keep checking them. Takes experience, takes time. Your first time doing it, you're probably going to get it wrong. You're probably going to pull them and they're not going to be quite the way you want them. So you just adjust for next time. Next time, either pull them a little bit later or sooner, depending upon how done they were. If they're overdone, falling apart, then that usually means you let them sit in there for too long. If they're not quite as tender, then they haven't been in there long enough, really. So that's what we're going to do today, and just keep checking them until they feel like they're done. As soon as they're done, we'll pull them out and let them rest, and then cut them for dinner. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes. I'm just back out here to check them and see how they feel now, see how they've been progressing. You can see the foil is even a little bit more brown now, so they've been getting warm. So yeah, so I can feel already that it's a lot more soft, a lot more tender. I don't want to bend too hard, but kind of push here in the middle and see how they feel. It's feeling like it's getting close. So definitely in about 15 minutes that might be done. So this one actually feels done. So I'm actually going to pull this one now. Get that one pulled and get it resting, but it's, you can see it's just totally bending, just like what we want it to do. Don't want it to get too overdone, but I think we hit that one in the right spot. Then I'll come back in about 15 minutes and check this other one and see when it's done. All right, so it's actually been about 40 minutes now since I last recorded to show the ribs. I came out and checked them a few times. They just weren't quite done still, but I'm going to go ahead and check them now, just kind of see where they're at. I'm thinking they're going to be done. Last time they were really, really close, so I'm going to go ahead and just check them and feel them. And oh yeah, these are totally done. And you can see now how they're just kind of bending a little bit. They're not able to hold themselves fully on their own weight. Feel in the middle, you can definitely feel the tenderness of them. So these ones are done. I'll go ahead and pull these and let them rest now as well. One thing I wanted to point out, this is why I do not, I don't just go off of temperature of meat. I don't go off of time either. I go off of how they actually feel. Pull them when they're done. Pull them when they're actually ready. Make sure that they are totally done before I'm pulling them. You can't just go off of time. Because meat comes from animals, and because every animal is different, every piece of meat is going to be different also. So they're all going to cook differently. They're all going to finish at different times. They're not all going to be the same. If we would have done like a traditional 3-2-1 or 3-2 or 3-3, whatever method where you're just going off of time, one of our racks of ribs would have been done, the other one wouldn't have been done, or one rack would have been way overcooked, the other one would have been probably okay. So always go off of feel, always go off of how the actual condition of the meat at the time that you're pulling it off. Don't just go off of time. Don't just go off of temperature with ribs. Of course, you can't really temp them. It's not really something you can do with, there's just no room to temp them, but feel. Go off of feel. Pick them up with your hands, feel them. Like I said, it takes a few times. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking your first time trying to guess and try to figure it out. The earlier in the cook you start doing it, the better you can really get a feel for how they're progressing. All right, so the ribs are done resting, and now it's time to unwrap them and check them and slice them and start eating. So go ahead and unwrap this first one here. This one should be the one that I did with just the turkey rub, which it is. That's exactly what this one is. So again, these are spare ribs. These are full-size spare ribs, meaning that they're all the way across, but also these aren't St. Louis style. St. Louis style spare ribs, what they do is this cartilage that's right here, they go ahead and they cut that off, and then so that all you have is just the actual rib part. That's the one difference between the St. Louis style spare rib and this kind of spare rib. It's just the way that they cut it. And then of course across the top up here, that's where your back ribs are, and that's where those connect into. Me personally, in my opinion, I really prefer just spare ribs or back ribs. I'm not St. Louis style ribs, and the main reason why is because right here, this cartilage area is a really good area. You know, right here, if you think about the anatomy of a pig, here's your back ribs, spare ribs, and then down here is where it connects into the pork belly. So you can get some of that pork belly flavor down here in this area that's really good. So I think that sometimes it's a mistake cutting that off. But anyways, the way that I like to slice ribs is I hold it up like this. This way I can see the back and see where the actual ribs are. And then just get basically a bread slicing knife and start just slicing right down the middle of them. So you go through them all, and this is pretty much it. Once we get these all the way cut, then, you know, of course they're ready to eat. I recommend eating them, you know, pretty much right after you cut them. You know, once you start cutting through meat like this, it will oxidize. It will start to lose some of that moisture. So the sooner you can eat them after you slice, the better. I definitely do not recommend slicing until you're ready to eat them as well for that purpose. So, but anyway, they're done. They look like, I mean, they feel perfectly tender. They feel exactly how they should. Nice and flexible, and a good bend to them. Good smoke to them. So these ribs are going to be fantastic. They've turned out very well. So feel free to you know, comment on anything you like that I did, or if you have any suggestions on things I could do differently. Love to hear that also. I'm happy to always hear what other people do to make their ribs and implement those things as well. And I've got a video up right now showing some pork butts, how to make pork butts. I've got a video coming out soon showing some turkey breasts that I did over Thanksgiving. Or actually, they should already be out by now. So yeah, go ahead and if you can check those out, that'd be great. And if you like my content and things that I do, please like and subscribe, especially subscribe. I need subscribers so that I can subscribers really go a long way towards helping me to be able to continue to make videos like this and to be able to afford to buy just all the meats and the wood and everything else that goes into these things. So you guys all know that, you know, these things aren't free and they're not cheap. So please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And until next time.